I'm Kate Harrison, a student at Parker Middle School. Welcome back to Ask the Superintendent. In this episode, we field questions on class equity, teacher concerns, and more. Jen, a Harrington parent, has concerns about parent-teacher communication. She wonders why there is only one conference each year at elementary level and why teachers are not required to reach out to parents if their child has a sudden change academically.
Thank you, Jen, for bringing forward this question as a Harrington parent. We typically at the elementary school level have one set of structured parent-teacher meetings in the fall, and it comes after the first marking period. It's an opportunity for every parent to come in and meet with their teachers to not only talk about how their students are performing academically at the elementary level, but also to learn a little bit about the curriculum, some of the pacing, some of the expectations over the course of the year. We, by contract, have one required meeting with our teachers and parents each fall, and that's how we typically have used that time. Parent, teacher, and home communication should really be ongoing throughout the course of the year. I know most of our teachers actually send weekly messages home. Schools certainly do as well. We strongly encourage anytime parents have concerns about their child's academic performance or abilities or anything that's happening in the classrooms for them to reach directly out to the teachers to try to keep that home school communication open. I think anytime you have a question or concern, you should do so. I know the teachers that I work with daily and our principals work with daily in the schools, if they're having academic concerns about individual students, will reach out to parents. I think the communication goes both ways, and if parents are concerned, they certainly should reach out to the teacher. If there's ever a concern as a parent that you didn't receive timely information or communication, the proper course of action would be to actually set up a meeting or send an email communication or call to the building principal so that they can be aware of your concern and they can try to work with you and the teacher to resolve that and to try to get things back on track. We do like to follow our procedure. I would always recommend first, if you have a concern, going to the teacher themselves. Again, if you're not satisfied or you're still concerned, the building principal. If you're not satisfied or still have concerns at that point, certainly contact us at central office, and we'll try to assist you in taking a look at your situation, opening those lines of communication again if things have been difficult. But I really am very impressed with our teachers overall and the homeschool communication that occurs in the schools. I think our teachers and administrators at the building level, particularly the elementary school level, have an extreme amount of information that's communicated back and forth about individual students, their learning styles, how they're doing during school, their academic performance, and we like to try to keep those lines of communication open. So if there are concerns, certainly address them, and sooner than later. Our fall parent-teacher night is really an opportunity to kind of set a dialogue for the year. Again, learn what those expectations are, but it is critical that the communication remains open and ongoing throughout the course of the school year.
Hi, I'm Joe Evans, a 6th grade member of the Student Council at McCarthy Middle School. I have a few more questions for the superintendent. A parent of 3 high school students wants to know why there is not consistency in testing and grading between different sections of the same course. For example, one teacher could grade students with in-class quizzes and chapter tests with 0 chance to retake for a better grade. In another class, testing could be done on the computer at home with access to notes and the chance to retake the test.
Joe, thank you very much for bringing forward that question from the high school, and this is actually something that we hear from time to time with and among parents who have multiple students at the high school, or even just multiple family members that are taking courses at the high school. One thing that's important to note is that across our curriculum at the high school, we do have standards that all of our courses address, so there is consistency in the standards. I think what you will find is teachers, and anytime you have multiple teachers teaching a particular course, there could be a variety of different reasons that they use different assessments to try to document how their students are performing and actually learning the different concepts within the class. I think what's important is that at the beginning of each section, the teacher and the students really work to understand what the expectations of that particular teacher are and what that particular course is. All of our teachers provide their students with a course syllabus at the beginning of the semester that lays out what those expectations are how students are going to be assessed with the different knowledge that they acquire throughout the course of the semester. So while all the different sections are actually following the same standards and the same information is being relayed, there are teachers that use different methodologies to test and try to actually see that their students are attaining the information that they're supposed to in the classes. One of the things that we do as a district is we have common assessments for all of our courses. So if you have 3 or 4 different teachers teaching a particular subject at the high school, at the end of each semester, the students will all take a common assessment. And we use that data that we get back from the common assessments to look and to see if all the different students who are taking different sections of the same course are on target and are all actually receiving the same materials. We use those results to go back and work with the teachers to make sure that their pacing and sequencing is appropriate and that all of our students by the end of a semester or the end of a course have attained the knowledge that they need to be able to move on to the next section. One of the underlying reasons you might also see different teachers use different assessments is because of the student makeup in the courses. Sometimes some students with individual education plans or IEPs or 504s may require different accommodations, and teachers may use different types of assessments to try to see what their students have received within the classes. So there are a number of different reasons why it might not just be cut and dry, but what I would be most concerned with is that teachers are actually following the syllabus that they have given students earlier in the semester, that the expectations are very clear for how students are going to be assessed throughout the course of the semester, and then it's looked at again at the end of the semester. If you ever have questions about that, the first line of inquiry should really be with the individual department coordinator at the high school. So if it was the mathematics department, you would talk to Dr. Baranavant. You could contact the high school and find out the appropriate administrator to speak with if you do have a question. If you don't receive the response to the question that you have, you certainly can bring it up with building administration. And then our central office, if you have questions for further inquiry, we're always happy to talk with you about that. But I would always start at the building level if you do have questions about assessments or ways students are being assessed within classes. Thank you very much for that question. Again, it does come up from time to time, so I'm very happy to get that information out to you.
Several parents wish to know how best to communicate concerns regarding the quality of teaching their students are receiving. They are also concerned about retribution. How are the teachers evaluated? How can parents share comments and concerns?
Thank you, Joe, for bringing this question forward this afternoon. And again, we do get questions along this from time to time, so I'm happy to provide a response to hopefully be helpful to other parents who may have similar questions. Our teachers and really all staff in the district undergo a pretty extensive evaluation process each year that takes into consideration work that they're doing inside the classroom certainly, but even outside trying to prepare for our students when they're in front of them in the classrooms. Anytime a parent has a question or concern about the services that their students are receiving in the school by any staff member, whether it be their actual classroom teacher or any support staff who are helping them, you need to bring those concerns up, and I recommend doing this first with the actual classroom teacher themselves or whoever the service provider is to make sure that there's agreement and understanding around what services are to be delivered, what is the expectation of the parent, what is the expectation of the teacher, and try to see if the people are on the same page. If there's an issue about that and there's a disagreement about service delivery or the type of services a student is receiving, the next step would be to bring that to the building administrator. So if you're elementary school, middle school, or high school, an assistant principal or principal of the building, and have a conversation with them at that point and try to see if you can, again, find some common ground and try to work through any communication issues that there may be. A step beyond that, obviously, if you're not happy or satisfied with the response that you receive from the school, you certainly can call us at central office and we will try to help you understand a little bit about where the disconnect may be. We will try to help you back at the school level to reopen the communication channels between the administration and the teachers so that those concerns can be expressed freely and openly. No parent should be concerned, or a student should be concerned about bringing a concern forward to a teacher that there'd be any kind of retribution or retaliation for bringing that forward. That absolutely would not be allowed. The communication needs to be open and honest. If anyone had a concern that happened, or they feel that their child was going to be or has been treated unfairly because of bringing a complaint forward, you absolutely immediately should contact your building administrator so that they can investigate the claim. Certainly, you could also involve central office. We would look into that and try to support all parties to come to some resolution of the matter, or to look into a claim if a claim was actually made. So in summary, I think it's critical anytime a parent has a question or concern about their student, that they first bring that concern forward to the teacher, the building administrator, central office if necessary, so that any of the issues that may have come up or need to be looked into can be done so quickly, discreetly if necessary, and get right back to the student learning at hand.
A parent asks what the parking pass funds are used for. She would like to see a lottery for upperclassmen for free passes.
Parking fees at the high school actually are a topic that come up from time to time, so I'm happy that this question actually came up at this point. To give you a little bit of history, parking fees traditionally have been used to offset the cost of busing in the district. Most recently, we actually changed the offset so that the cost of parking fees that are collected at Chelmsford High School go to offset the upkeep of the parking lot itself, security for the parking lot, to keep the staff and students in the building safe. This current year that we're in now, the 2018-19 school year, is actually the last year that we're going to be collecting parking fees at the high school. In the budget for fiscal 20, which begins July 1st, we've actually incorporated funding to be able to cut the parking fee at the high school or eliminate it, so that students beginning next year will not need to pay parking fees to park at the high school. If students still elect to ride the school bus to the high school, they will have to pay a fee for that transportation, which is provided by one of our contracted vendors. But students will need to just register at the high school for a parking pass next year if they elect to take their own car. They will do that, and they will not be assessed a fee. So again, previously, to be responsive to your question, the fees have been used to offset the upkeep of the parking at the high school itself. But going forward for school year 2019-20, beginning next fall, students actually are not going to have to pay parking fees at the high school. They'll simply register at the high school for a parking pass so that we can figure out how many kids will be parking at the school. We'll still issue them a parking permit, but there will be no fees. I think that will be welcomed news to students and parents of high school students who drive to the high school.
A parent with 3 students in the district has some communication and technology-related questions. First, there are many different forms of communication between the districts, teachers, and parents on multiple platforms and formats. Is there any plan to streamline this and make it more consistent?
Thank you, Joe, for bringing forward this question, and this is also timely as we've had a lot of discussion in the district about communication, streamlining communication, the different forms that parents and staff can communicate within the district. I think first and foremost, as we take a look at communication, I think it's positive that we actually have a lot of communication that happens between parents and staff in the school system. We can always look to try to better that and to streamline it so that it's more efficient. We are actually taking some steps this year to look at that. I think our primary means of communication right now are email communications that either go directly from staff to parents. Sometimes they may come in through ConnectEd or Blackboard Connect, which is a system that we use. School teachers are also starting to use a lot of the different Google products with their students. So you might be invited to view student work or student assignments through the Google platform. But we're really encouraging staff and parents to be able to be communicating as much as possible about individual students and what their needs are to make sure that they're succeeding in school. I think one of the other challenges we have is from time to time there are different technologies that come around or come along that either our students are up on or teachers may hear of from other colleagues, whether it's in our district or in other districts, that they find to be effective with parents. So oftentimes a small number of teachers or a group of teachers may try some different communication tools with parents to try to see if they're successful or not. If we find something that works well, we try to replicate that across the district. We are going to be taking a look at our streamlining our communications as a district this spring and then over the course of the next school year. The school committee has actually allocated some funding within the budget to be able to do that, to come up with some streamlined communication platforms. But I think just part of the industry, we're always going to be looking to improve upon the ways that we can very quickly and accurately and effectively communicate between families and staff in the schools. So it's going to be an ongoing dialogue, an ongoing conversation. But again, I think you're going to see that the three main means of communication right now are email, Blackboard Connect, and then the Google suite of products that a lot of our teachers and staff are using. Certainly there's work to be done. It's something that we're aware of, and it is something that actually is a goal of mine and the school committees over the next year or so to try to formalize.
The second part of the question states that the budget, if passed, includes a one-to-one Chromebook rollout in the 5th and 9th grades. Is this just to meet MCAS requirements? What about families who do not have internet access at home?
As to the second part of the question, I'm actually very excited about this one-on-one rollout that we're going to be able to do in the district next year. We've been talking for quite a while internally, and I know we've had conversations with parents as well about trying to integrate more technology into our schools and into our classrooms. So we have actually worked with the school committee to identify a funding source to be able to provide some additional technology for our students. We had a technology working committee that took a look at this project over the last school year, and we determined that the best way to infuse some new technology into the district was to pick specific grade levels, and we've selected incoming grade 5 students and incoming grade 9 students to provide each of them with dedicated their own device. We are going to use a Chromebook. That was the type of device that we've selected, and each of our incoming 5th and 9th graders will be provided at no cost a Chromebook to basically use for their either middle school or high school career with us. So a 5th grader will receive a Chromebook when they come in 5th grade. They'll keep that for 4 years, turn it in when they're 8th graders before they go on to the high school, and then as high schoolers they will get a new Chromebook for 9th through 12th grade. The device will last about 4 years. That's why we selected a 4-year transition. And again, this is an effort to actually integrate additional technology in the classroom. We have received and just heard even anecdotally from teachers in our buildings that despite how many new devices we try to put into the buildings, there is just a demand for more. Not so much that kids can be working in front of the device from the time they get to school in the morning to the time they go at the end of the day. But we currently have carts in our buildings that have, say, Chromebooks on them, and different teachers can sign them out for different class activities. And we're just seeing so much of a demand for devices that we're not able to keep up with it. So this is actually an initiative to try to provide that one-on-one ratio of computers to students so that teachers at any time during their instruction can turn to the students and say, okay, now it's time to take out your Chromebook because we're going to do research on a particular topic, or small groups can be working on different elements of a project within the classrooms. This is also going to allow us to be able to take the existing technology, the carts that are in the buildings, and use those for the other grade levels, again, increasing the ratio of computers to students in those grade levels. So if all 5th grade students have their own device, now the existing carts can service only 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students, again, providing more computers to those grade levels. In the second year of implementation, when all 5th and 6th grade students have the device, again, those carts can service the 7th and 8th grade students, and we'll almost be at a one-to-one district-wide at that point. But our goal is over 4 years to be able to basically provide every student grade 5 to 12 with a device, and this will be a renewal refresh type program. This absolutely has nothing to do with MCAS or standard assessments. It's really a way of infusing more technology into the classroom. A lot of our teachers are doing blended learning where you have lessons that are taking place during the classroom. There are certain elements that happen in the room itself. They may have to go on the internet to research something. They may be able to work offline now if we provide them a device. We're trying to provide really equity and access to technology, and that's why the district is going to be providing each student with a device so that you won't have a situation of the haves and have-nots where some students are able to provide their own device. We're going to actually provide that device to everyone. So I think that's significant. As a byproduct, obviously, of this initiative, it's certainly going to help us when we perform any kind of standardized testing, whether it's MCAS or any other assessment that we implement in the district, because we'll have more devices to be able to implement it. But this is not an initiative that's actually targeted at standardized assessments at all. This is really an initiative that's targeted at providing more direct technology to students in classrooms.
Lastly, there seems to be a trend towards reducing overall screen time for children, together with the realization that students need more in-person social interactions and instruction. How does this rollout respond to that concern?
I think what's important to note about this initiative is that by providing a one-on-one environment, this does not eliminate or reduce the importance of teaching in any way. The classroom teacher is still going to be directing all of the activities within the classrooms. They're the prime resource that are going to be working with the students. I think what this initiative is doing is actually, again, providing that additional technology to enhance what's actually happening within the classrooms. So I don't envision students coming into school in the morning and being told, okay, take out your laptop and we're going to now be on the computer for 5 or 6 hours. But what this is going to provide is when the classroom teacher decides that the students in front of him or her are going to work on a particular project that's technology-based, so they need to access technology to make the lesson stronger, that they will have that resource readily available to them. And it will be a situation where the teacher doesn't have to go and sign out a laptop cart and bring that to the classroom and distribute laptops. It will be seamless as, okay, pick up your textbook. We're going to work on a particular project right now or a particular chapter. Okay, take up your Chromebook because we're going to do some research. The other issue I see this actually helping is a lot of our teachers, when you're in classrooms, kind of work in stations, so that you may have a group of 20 students, 4 or 5 working with the teacher on a particular topic. 4 or 5 might be out on their Chromebooks actually researching something. Another small group might be looking into a different project or doing some writing exercise together. This will just allow, again, as an additional technology resource, to be able to really strengthen that communication and collaboration between and among students in the classroom, and then also the teachers. So I don't see this adding a significant amount of screen time over what currently takes place within schools. It's just going to provide the flexibility to be able to really call on that technology and have it be readily available whenever the teacher determines that it's best. And best needed at that particular time. But your teacher is still your primary resource. The computer, the one-on-one device, will never eliminate the teacher in front of you.
A parent with an incoming middle schooler asks if the middle school will change to a spiral science curriculum next year, as per the DESE standards.
Thank you for this question, and this has actually been talked about recently as well. On the matter of middle school science, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education actually provide 2 different options for districts to consider. One is spiraling the sequence of physical science, earth, and life science in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grades, and another is actually to treat them as discrete subjects and teach them as 3 separate subjects. In Chelmsford, we're actually going to do a little bit of a hybrid of both. So we're going to spiral, or actually have physical science be taught in each of 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and then integrate earth and life science as specific subjects in the 7th and 8th grade. Again, this was something that the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education is leaving up to individual districts. Some of it relates to our particular teachers, their licensure, how we're currently delivering this particular content. But when our staff got together to talk about this and to figure out what the best way to implement in Chelmsford would be, the decision was that kind of hybrid of providing the physical science at all grade levels and then integrating earth and life science separately as discrete subjects in 7th and 8th grade.
Jen, parent of a middle schooler and town educator, thinks the quality of education and offerings are vastly different at both of the middle schools and asks if the district is trying to change that and create a more equitable experience for all students.
Thank you, Jen, for bringing forward this question. And as a district, I think we actually go to great lengths to provide equitable programming at all levels of the district, whether it be the elementary, the middle, and the high school. Obviously, it's a little more difficult at the elementary school. We have 4 schools, and we're trying to provide unified and equitable programming. We have 2 middle schools and then 1 high school. I think when you take into consideration our 2 middle schools, academically, we try to provide our teachers many opportunities to get together with their colleagues from the other schools. When we have early release days each month, by discipline, our teachers from the middle schools will get together and actually work on their syllabus or their pacing guides, any type of initiatives that may be happening in the 2 schools to make sure that we actually have that equity in programming. What I think you will see in Chelmsford, not only at the middle schools but the elementary schools, is some uniqueness around our individual staff or their interests in the schools. A lot of our staff do a lot of extra work even outside of schools with like clubs and activities and around their particular interests. That's where you may see some diversity or some differing of programs because our individual staff in those buildings have a particular interest and they're working with students around those interests. I actually think that's a strength of ours, and that provides a little bit of uniqueness to each of our buildings, which I think is a positive. But we certainly, when it comes to our academic offerings during the day, our extracurriculars as far as different sports or music and arts programming, we try to be consistent and provide a baseline of programs at all schools that is equitable. And then again, you get into some of the individual interests of specific staff members in the buildings and some of the extra work that they do. That is what kind of provides that uniqueness. We try to allow the students who attend Parker and McCarthy to have very similar education experiences, and that is something that we look at as far as equity of resources and equity of programming across the district. It's good to know. I appreciate you bringing that forward. We'll certainly keep that on the radar as we're looking at our programming to make sure that it is fair and equitable among all of our schools.
A parent feels that quiet bullying, the kind that happens in the halls, after school, online, and during lunches, is escalating. What is being done to help staff monitor these difficult situations and to help both staff and students navigate these situations?
Thank you, Joe, for bringing forward that important question. And the notion of the topic of bullying does come up quite a bit these days in schools. And I think Chelmsford is actually very proactive in trying to eliminate and certainly minimize bullying wherever possible. We, obviously, as a district, we have some very high expectations for students learning in the academic realms, and we also have very high expectations of our student when it comes to their social emotional learning and supports within the buildings. There is a zero tolerance policy for bullying in the district. If there were any issues of students who feel that they're being targeted or bullied or whatnot, again, if I were the parent, I would first start to have that conversation with the child's teacher. Try to see if issues can be resolved at the teacher level. I think that's critical to keeping the communication open so the teachers can have a sense of what's happening with the students in their individual classrooms. Certainly the next step would be to bring that concern to the building administration and then central administration because we take this very seriously if you don't feel that your situation has been properly resolved at the school level. I will say that I feel across the district our staff go above and beyond to keep all of our students and staff very safe. We do have particular policies and procedures that relate to bullying, any kind of concerns that need to be brought forward. The district does have a bullying prevention policy that's on our website. Any parent can can access. It goes through the different steps to be able to report a concern, have a concern be investigated, and our building leadership and all staff in the district, again, take this seriously. They respond to parent concerns and complaints, and we make sure that things are investigated and followed up with properly. So if you have any concerns along those lines, again, first start with the teacher, second your building administrator, and if you still have any concern over the situation, please bring that to our attention at central office so that we can also get involved and assist you in making the situation better.
Thank you for watching Ask the Superintendent. We hope you enjoyed the show and encourage you to send in questions you may have. If you sent in a question and did not see it here, please tune in to the next episode. If you would like to submit a question, please click on Ask the Superintendent button on the Chelmsford Public Schools homepage.